Gosh, this couch is comfy.
Woo!
Welcome to Couch's Corner, the 8th episode. I always mess it up.
The Ocho.
The Ocho. TS, it was ESPN, the Ocho?
ESPN, like on, what was that, Dodgeball?
Dodgeball.
And they had like 15 channels of ESPN.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Great movie.
Great
Already
movie.
with the
I
references.
didn't know. But as soon as you said 8, I had it in the back of my mind too when we were like counting the episode. And I'm like, it's the Ocho. That's a
The
bold
Ocho.
move, Cotton.
See how it pays off. So yeah, welcome to episode 8 of the Couch's Corner podcast. We're here this week talking about obviously Vegas and Washington, who got through last night.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we've had, our feelings have been very public about the whole Vegas situation. And I think a lot of people feel the same way, but I don't know. I think I'm starting to warm up to it a little bit. Once you you have to kind of like take the fact out that they're not an expansion team and just watch them play hockey, and it's not that bad. But then you remember it's an expansion team, and it's like, my God, how did this happen?
Yep.
Like, who created this monster?
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, this week we had, which leads me right into like something pretty funny. This week or last week, the episode had the most comments and most fan
Most interaction.
All you
Yeah.
fans out there. We've had the most fan interaction, and it's funny that you say, forget about hockey. We don't really know about anymore. And a buddy of mine named Braden commented on hockey, and he said, at this point, I don't think I know anything about the sport anymore.
I think there's a lot of people who feel that, and I think there's a lot, and there's other people. I mean, I read on Twitter. I'm on Twitter a lot, and I read a lot of like the sports analysts and all the bloggers and everything like that. And it's the same sentiment. It's everything that you can almost predict, because in the playoffs you predict the unpredictable. But no one would have ever predicted this. Everyone thought that maybe they would. I mean, like you said, we both didn't think they would win a round. I thought they were going to fizzle out in the second round, and I thought San Jose had a really good opportunity against them, and it just kind of slipped away. But it doesn't make sense.
Did it really slip away though? I feel like even though they lost,
They were never in it.
were they?
I thought so. I thought
Was it ever, looking back now, would you ever have counted Vegas out?
no, and I think that starts from the back end though. Yeah, San Jose. The reason I thought that they were going to come crashing down against San Jose was because they're a team that's been there recently. A deep playoff run. They've had a lot of veteran guys. They have younger guys too, like Timo Meyer and even Thomas Hurdle too. That are starting to pick up the slack. From the carryover from, we'll call it the Thornton and Marlowe era, even though Thornton is open to coming back and obviously didn't play in the playoffs. But I thought they had a team that, especially watching their games in the game 4 in San Jose, that looked like that was going to be it. That they had momentum rolling into game 5, and that was where the series was going to turn. But as soon as game 5 started, it was everything. It's like every time Vegas goes to play, you drop the puck on a brand new game. Doesn't matter what happened the period before or the game before. It's wiped out of your mind. Whether you were up by 4 goals or down, everything's wiped clean. And I think that's a sense of a well coached team, a well disciplined team, that they can, regardless of the score or the style of the game, that they can just come out flying and just do their job.
Yeah. And so now I'm in like a big pickle with like one of my favorite players playing in the Stanley Cup final for the first time, and Vegas, who now I feel like
Jay Beagle.
Jay Beagle, fuck Jay Beagle.
I love
he's
a
good guy. I don't say fuck Jay.
He's like one of the best fourth liners in the league.
I do mean Ovi. But now it's like I want Vegas to win because like, how could you not?
We're at the point now. We're at the point of no return, and I know we're gonna do predictions after. We're gonna try and dissect the series towards the end of the podcast. But I mean, I don't want to. I'm having a hard time because I haven't won a series since the first round. So I'm 0 for 6 since the end of round 1, and both Vegas and the Washington Capitals, I predicted them to win a combined 0 series.
Yep.
So they're literally that's the equivalent of losing a bracket.
At least
Of
I got
losing a bracket,
I
not
got
just
one.
not winning. Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I know you got the one, and I would have thought that Tampa would have come back a bit, would have put up more of a fight, especially considering that their first two series didn't seem to take a lot out of them.
Hmm.
Thought they would have had more in the tank, because there's two different schools of thought. Sorry, where and we'll dive into it more. But Winnipeg comes off of a thrilling 7-game series against the Nashville Predators,
Hmm.
and what could very well be one of the best series that anyone's watched in this decade, and follow it up with a 5-game loss to the Golden Knights. And you look on the other side of that, where Washington finally gets through with their arch nemesis and reels off 2 huge wins. I think what I'm more impressed with in that series is the fact that Washington was up 2, and then they were down 3, and then won the last 2 games.
Yeah.
It's not a those the way those wins came, it doesn't happen very often, because you
No.
usually think that it'd either be really back and forth at the beginning, and then a team would pull away, and it seemed like Washington was going all out, coming off of a high of the Pittsburgh series win, and Tampa Bay caught up with them, and I think Washington just got back to their game, and back-to-back shutouts in Game 6 and 7 for Braden Holtby.
Yeah.
There's not much more you can
I
really
can't
say
believe he
about
got
that.
sat the first game.
It's crazy to think, and we were talking about whether it was a good idea to sit him. And I remember, and I know the thought was, Holtby didn't have a great season. Obviously he's the starting goaltender, but I think Barry Trotz figured that if he knew Grubauer if it wasn't gonna work out, and you can't blame the 2 losses on Philip Grubauer though against
Yeah.
Columbus, but they knew that they had that in their back pocket, and rolling forward, Braden Holtby is. He's only lost 5 games since Game 3 of the first round.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. Another stat, actually, I read this today, and I thought this was very interesting. The Toronto Maple Leafs, because everybody talks about the Leafs, doesn't matter what time of year or who's playing,
Yep.
allowed 28 goals in the first round against the Boston Bruins in a 7-game series. So they let in an average of 4 goals a game.
Okay.
Vegas Golden Knights, all the games which have been played by Marc-Andre Fleury, a combined 27 goals against throughout the entire playoffs.
Wow.
So 3 rounds, that means that they let in an average of 9 goals per round.
Well, and I guess then you deserve to win a cup at that.
I think at that point is when you start becoming a contender. So, so we hop in. Actually, first, before we hop into that, I think we should update everybody in our pool.
Right before
Let's
that.
do that. Before that, even.
Right before that.
We need a producer for this stuff.
We
man.
just need to give shout outs to the people who commented.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
I like this.
Braden, thank you for reaching out. Cody, thank you for reaching out. Jordan, Dan, who replied to his being called out last week.
Yeah.
He played that Tony dude from Pardon the Interruption and played statistician for us.
So he told us we messed up 88
Yep.
times.
Yep.
On what?
We did not. We missed 80 different times. Just the one. So his reply was, Denver also fired their coach in 2013 when he won Coach of the Year.
Oh, there you go.
Fun fact: the GM was the same person who's the Raptors GM.
Ujiri?
I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Sam Mitchell was also fired the year he won Coach of the Year in Toronto, and he said it's not common, but it does happen.
It's not, and I think the same thing has happened before. I know the same thing has happened to Ted Nolan with his stint in Buffalo in 1997, where the Sabres ended up making the playoffs. It was the first. That was a good time for Buffalo, where that was the prime Hasek years.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing. He got canned after 1 year, and it could have been philosophical differences, but for everyone that can speak about him, Ted Nolan's a great coach, and he's even been he was even tasked previously with heading up the Latvian program, and was actually the coach of the Latvian Olympic men's team that almost upset Canada in 2014 back in Sochi.
Nice.
So yeah, absolutely.
So there's one more or two more.
Oh,
so Trevor.
That's right.
I got your name
Tyler
right
this week.
It's not Tyler. It is Trevor, and he's really good at actually having a conversation. So he replied on YouTube. The other ones replied on Facebook, and then we had an Instagram, another podcast comment a few weeks ago, and I forgot to say. So Inside the Stoner Studios was.
Where is this?
They're in the States somewhere, I think. But they host a podcast about movies and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured I would just give them a quick shout out. And
What are they called again?
Inside the Stoner Studios, and they said our idea was awesome.
They like
So-
just. I bet you like I haven't. I mean, I might check them out now, but I've never heard of them before. But I mean, it just seems like is this guys just like hang out and like get ripped and watch movies and comment on them, or
I don't know. I hope maybe they'll reply. I'll tag them in this week's and
tag them in this week and we're coming to watch, buddy. We're coming to watch Stoner Station. I got it right this time.
a podcast about finer points in cinema, offensive jokes, excessive tokes, and tell us what you think by tagging. That's their
That's
tagline.
Hey, you know what? It's hey, you know that could be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
There's lots of the podcasts have actually caught on. There's a lot I've been that I've been reading about and listening to, and there's a lot of good ones out there. But the one thing that gets me that I've never actually tuned into yet is the James Duthie Rubber Boots podcast.
Oh, great!
And I feel
podcast.
ashamed because I'm a big James Duthie fan, and the fact that my name is in the title. So I think I should.
That's a lie. You
listen to
you
Duthie's,
listened to the first one with Jared Kiso.
I did listen. You're right. I did listen to a portion
'Cause
of
I
it
told you about it.
yes, I do. Yes, absolutely. And the Bob McKenzie one, I've never listened to the Bobcast yet either. But that guy's just a wealth of knowledge, man. He's like the walking, talking guru of the sport of hockey.
Yeah.
Especially in Canada too.
So yeah, those are all the shout outs that I have. Feel free to interact this week, guys, and share with your friends. So now we can finally move on.
Now we're gonna get into our just to score really quick because we're getting down to the nitty gritty of our playoff rounds of our pool. Sorry, and I've been gaining some ground. So I mean I've lost a lot to Chris over the last 3 rounds, and I'll give a breakdown right now just to show you how far I've come. Because I have a lot to do with this when it comes to fantasy sports. So in the first round, I got whooped by a whopping 256 to 194. In round 2, I actually came up 30 points ahead. I gained 30 points. I was at 190 to 130. And in round 3, that completed last night with a big 14 to 1 win. I came back and won round 3, 65 to 57. So now I'm down 473 to 449, and I still have a defenseman left, and that's who's been racking up our points because my 14 points last night.
And
came
what
from
wins championships?
defense. And I think that it's a cruel little twist almost on yourself in a way
I know.
because you devised this whole pool. And we picked our teams, and I knew it was defense. Like it was Dustin Byfuglien that was carrying it through. And last night it was, I mean, obviously John Carlson for the Caps and Hedman for Tampa Bay played a lot of minutes in a big game like that. So you got your only point, which was an Ovechkin goal, which stood up as the winner after the first 62 seconds of the game, and then I racked up 14 straight points via hits and block shots because that's pretty much all those defensemen were doing last night to try and grind it out. So I have now John Carlson and William Carlson remaining as my 2. I have the Carlsons.
That sounds like a TV show.
And like it'd be Eric Carlson. You know what? I think it'd be pretty cool. I mean, it'd be like I was talking to somebody about last night. I remember there was a time when the Sens had like 5 Chris's on their team.
Ooh.
And you're thinking right now.
I am thinking about it.
Big Rig, Chris
Big
Phillips,
Rig, yeah.
Chris Kelly.
Chris Kelly.
This one's a stretch, but Christoph Schubert.
Yeah, that's a Chris.
Remember, yeah, the swingman played defense and forward.
Yeah.
And there was a 5th one. Maybe it's just 4. But I can't. I'm trying to think of a 5th guy named Chris that would have played with them in like the mid to late 2000s. But it was just funny because that's my favorite team growing up, and they had 4 Chris's on the team.
That's
But
funny.
anyways, who do you have left? Why don't you enlighten us to see who you have to try and hold your lead right now?
So I have Alex Ovechkin. So I would say probably close to a point a game player.
You would hope that he'd, and I mean, he's been lights out this playoff, so he's 2 goals away from tying the Caps' all-time playoff single-season record.
And let's try to get this one right. Jonathan Marchessault.
See, why is it so easy for us to
Yes!
figure that out, man?
Got it right.
Like, and they've gotten better, and I'm pretty sure, and there's got to be people at Rogers or at Sportsnet that go up to Jim Hughes and be like, listen, like,
You're wrong.
you're wrong, buddy. I know you've been doing this for a long time, but you gotta get your shit together.
It's like whenever it was Alex Semin, and a lot of guys used to say Alex Seaman. But I don't know if that was just because, I mean, it's kind of funny.
It's just there. It's like making that joke that, like, if it's just there, you have to make it. Although when it comes to announcing a professional athlete's name, might be a little bit touchy, a little bit insulting, but I'm not sure he quite understood what everyone was saying
Yeah,
at the time, anyways.
and I mean, if he got mad, he's just gonna slap somebody
Yeah,
in a
the Mark
slap
Stahl
fight.
fight. Yeah,
So
I was surprised that Mark Stahl just didn't absolutely dummy him that day, but it's probably a good thing he didn't because I think that he'd be eating his meals through a tube for the rest of his life.
yeah. So before we get into uh, this final series, last week I said there was some questions that you weren't allowed to respond to. One being Dustin Bufflin is tougher than Ryan Reeves, and I ended the episode by saying Ryan Reeves can suck it, and
Who puts him out of the playoffs in his hometown, no less.
So Ryan Reeves, I don't apologize, but I mean, well played.
Yeah,
You must have listened, and I must have pissed you off.
absolutely. That's you know what I bet you. I bet you Johnny Marchessault walked into the dressing room and went on the whiteboard and put up some money and put a quote down from you. And I think
Yeah.
Ryan Reeves probably just beat the living shit out of it
Yeah.
with his bare fists, and then walked out there and happened to be in the right place at the right time.
Coach O'Ryan didn't threw a puck at the board. Yeah. Starts with a W. To win, Coach O'Ryan, sir. Wrong. Yeah.
Hey, you okay?
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah. When I was in Toronto, on Sunday, I was slightly hungover, so I decided that I was going to watch all three Mighty Ducks in my room because they were on TV.
Nice. Where would you rate them? What if you were to go say which one's the best one? Like
Two.
count them down.
100% number 2 is the best.
Yeah. What's your number? What's your number 2?
I like number 3,
Yeah.
and then number 1 is probably my least favorite, but I think it's because that was the one that came out when I was really young, and right whenever I was in like my formidable learning of hockey years. Number 2 came out, and then number 3 came out whenever I was like 10 years old, and I was like right around the age of like Charlie Conway and number 2, so number 3 was just awesome.
Yeah, I could see that. I've watched the first one more times over since I was a kid, and I'd have to say I agree with number 2 being the best. Number 1 would be my second, and number 3 would be number 3.
Mm-hmm.
That's
which I think was where a lot of people would rate it.
I think so. Just in terms of the whole Ducks thing, I mean, I think they try to put a unique twist on the third one.
I really hope that they not that they remake, that they use Joshua Jackson to coach the new Mighty Ducks.
So it's like Joshua Jackson gonna be like the guy who like gets a DUI and like has to like do community service or something.
Essentially, yeah.
Like yeah.
Or he's like comes back from the NHL.
Pacey from Dawson's Creek had a falling out.
Had a crisis.
Is it? Okay, I have to admit, I'm slightly embarrassed that I remembered his name. But when I had a broken leg when I was younger, I was laid up at home. I shit you not, man. I was laid up at home. Do you know what's on TV during the day, during the week?
Obviously not porn.
Nothing. No, not at all. Nothing. Like Dawson's Creek. I watched 2 episodes
you didn't
of
watch
it every
Melrose?
day. No, this shit wasn't on when I was watching.
Oh,
But that's what I was. I was in a cast.
that's
up
a
to my
Mighty
hip.
Ducks reference within that.
Yes, it is. Oh my god,
You like that?
man.
Good God.
We're having too much fun here. All right, let's. So, just with okay, is it too late to say Vegas is for real?
Oh,
this
no.
is a genuine question. I mean, there's a lot. This series brings this playoffs kind of brings me back to the 2003 playoffs, and you see the way the Mighty Ducks steamrolled in, and then the 2 Eastern Titans battled out in the Eastern Final. And the one team comes in, and it ends up being a 7-game series. But this series, this playoff reminds me of a lot of 15 years ago. And I know I was a teenager at the time, but it looks that way just because of the underdogs that the Vegas Golden Knights are.
Mhm.
You know, which is I mean
This
it's
this series reminds me of if I had to choose a series, it reminds me of LA.
like the first Stanley Cup run they
Yeah.
had, because they steamrolled
Like,
through everybody and only lost like
everybody.
a couple of games.
and
Yeah, they
dominated throughout, which is why when they came into this year, I was thinking that was what was going to happen again because it was essentially the same style of team that they had.
I think they had more, and even more so now. Their offense this season, which obviously plagued them in the first round, their offense is what drove the bus and what made the difference compared to the last few Kings teams that didn't do anything. And I think that we both thought that they'd be a hard team to contain. But
they're
Vegas got through them, man.
they're definitely for real. And the scary part is that essentially for the next 4 years, I'm gonna say this is the worst they're gonna be.
Yes, and that's I mean they can perennially build up, quite a bit over the next few years for sure. And I mean they have all the cap space in the world. I was reading today that they have cap space to make the trade for Eric Carlson, sign John Tavares, and I can't remember what else they're saying without even shedding a dime off their roster.
Wow.
Because that's I mean they have to re-sign a few guys. They have I think Shea Theodore and Colin Miller are RFAs this summer, and obviously there's James Neal that's going to be a UFA as well. And I mean I would think at this point they keep James Neal.
Oh,
he's,
yeah.
he's a leader of the team and
I think he
in
should.
the community
If
too
I
now.
if I had to put a captain on their team, I would say it would be him.
I think it's nice that Derek Englund was the guy who got to lift the trophy though. Who got to lift
Yeah.
the Campbell Conference Trophy the
He's
other day.
from Vegas.
He's
though,
well,
right?
he's from Canada originally, but he lives in Vegas. Like Vegas
Oh,
is his
okay.
home, is where he lives in the off season. So, I think it's kind of a nice touch
Yeah.
to have him there. And even from a hockey standpoint, he hasn't really looked. I mean, I always thought of Derek Englund as that prototypical seventh defenseman that you bring in and out of the lineup every so often just to give your team a different look. But
Yep.
he's been fitting in there. I mean, he's been doing amazing with them. And I think that the fact that it's his hometown team probably has somewhat to do with it.
Yeah.
Just to kind of dive in, I kind of wanted to go into the Vegas and the Winnipeg Jets because hats off to the Jets though on an amazing year that
Mhm.
they've taken. They took leaps this year, and I think we're starting to see what GM Kevin Cheveldayoff has been putting into place.
Yeah.
But how big? How big? I'm going to combine them both. How big were the third periods of both games 3 and 4? Because there's an argument you can make that they could have been up 3-1 going home with a chance to close, and
Well, that's-
Marc-Andre Fleury shut the door.
That's just it. I mean, I think if let's play back into this series and let's say John Marc-Andre Fleury got hurt in the first game.
Yeah.
There's Winnipeg would have steamrolled them.
I think so. There's
There-
no
this-
way.
This team is gonna it sounds so weird to say, but this team is gonna go as far as Marc-Andre Fleury can get them.
Well, a lot of teams are like that too, and a lot of teams that are even that on paper would stack up and look better than the Vegas Golden Knights. You'd say the same thing about how many times did we say over the years it's only as far as Lundqvist will take the Rangers, and they've dismantled their team in the process because they've had so many kicks at the can, they couldn't get it done. And Marc-Andre Fleury, whether it was a byproduct of being on a team with superstars like Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, I mean he's no fluke himself. He's a great goalie, and obviously I think we underestimate how much of an effect a good goalie can have on a roster.
And I think this goes way back though. And when you look at Marc-Andre Fleury in World Juniors and in his early part of his career, he played so much better when he got shelled.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at the third periods, and this is where I look at the last couple years, and you see them going towards Matt Murray, and he's getting shelled, playing on a team with Malkin, Crosby, and Kessel, and I look back and I say that statement, and it makes me wonder if that they didn't let him get shelled enough. Does that make sense?
To let who get shelled enough?
Marc-Andre Fleury in Pittsburgh in the last couple years.
No, and I mean it's tough to say because the crease was split even when Matt Murray wasn't supposed to be on the roster or in a starting role. I mean, those are teams that you wouldn't necessarily get shelled with.
Yeah.
And it's hard. I mean, it's not like you're sitting on last place Arizona or Buffalo getting 40 shots a night when you're with horrible defense in front of you. So, I mean, you try and not give up rebounds, but you don't have your own guys there to have your back.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very tough when it comes to that. The one thing I thought was, just kind of keeping with Vegas, though, is there's 3 times in that series against Winnipeg that I thought, okay, here we go. Jets get on the board. We're rolling right now, and Vegas answers back within a minute or a minute and a half. They did it 3 times, and it just sucks the life
I was
out of the crowd.
on Friday night or Saturday night. I was sitting in the bar. I can't remember what day? I think it was Friday night. I was sitting in the bar and with Bianca, and we were watching the Winnipeg game, and Jets score, and by the time I'd even had a chance to take my next nacho, fucking Vegas had scored.
Yeah, that's what it was. They're that quick, and I think going back to, I don't care how you played last period or last shift or last game, you go right back to work, and that's a calling of a good coach and of a very well disciplined team.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that sunk the Jets, and they didn't. I mean, when they play a long series against Nashville, and you gotta think that that takes its toll.
Yeah.
After a full 7 games, two of the two best teams in the league on paper, anyways,
Mhm.
according to the stats. I mean, that's got to take enough out of the Jets. But I didn't think, especially considering that they came out flying in the first game, like legit flying. They're up 3-0 in the first period, and then to find out that, hey, if you were to guess at that time that would be the only game they would win in the series, you'd probably shake your head and think, hey,
Yeah.
go smoke another one or something. That's it's hard to think, and that's what makes it so unpredictable.
Because I feel like
You know,
throughout that series, even into Game 3 and great, they played like a winning team. They like
the Jets looked and that's why I out of any team that's lost this playoff, they're the one team. Not even Nashville. I think Nashville didn't play good enough to warrant it. I think the way that they fell apart, and especially their goaltending, I don't feel bad that they didn't advance. I mean, they went through last year. They've got a good enough team to go back again next year, as far as I'm concerned with Nashville. But I mean, this is a very good Winnipeg team, and maybe that just goes to show how good of a team Vegas really is to do this to Winnipeg. You're manhandling a powerhouse. I mean, they stacked up at the trade deadline and got Stastny. I mean, their roster,
and he's been
he
fantastic.
was great, and I know they want to try and, I mean, even with the Jets, I know they want to try and sign him. They got
So here's the funny thing, though.
yeah.
You know what? A lot of years, I try and pick out the guy who's actually legitimately going to make a difference come the trade deadline. Because the trade deadline is never usually, the player that gets moved is not usually a player that's going to make or break whether you win the cup. But you know what?
It's that accent piece that's going to help you push over the top.
Stastny was definitely that accent.
He
played well.
He played well. You want to know something very interesting? Is just, I don't mean to tie in non-playoff teams, but the Ottawa Senators, when they went to go trade Derek Brassard, so there's two teams who really wanted Brassard at the deadline: Winnipeg and Pittsburgh. And obviously, we know where Brassard ended up going. But when the first trade was attempted to be made between Ottawa and Pittsburgh directly, and there wasn't enough salary moving back to Ottawa to fit Brassard in under the prorated cap. So what happened was Vegas got involved, and Vegas is the one who helped facilitate that trade. In all intents and purposes, it was a 3-way trade. But the reason that the Vegas Golden Knights did that was to block Derek Brassard from getting moved to Winnipeg, because Winnipeg was gunning for a second line centerman to really behind Scheifele to really lift them in the playoffs or down the stretch into the playoffs.
Mhm.
And the ironic thing was the only way that the trade was made to get Brassard to Pittsburgh was by Pittsburgh sending Ryan Reeves to Vegas. And in return, Ryan Reeves, as we touched on earlier, put out the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah.
And the only reason he was there is because Vegas GM George McPhee had a fear running into a team like the Winnipeg Jets in the playoffs with a bona fide second line centerman, which he thought would have been Brassard rather than Stastny. I just thought that's an interesting. That's an interesting way to put it, just because there's so many small things. In some ways, if that trade doesn't get made, Ryan Reeves is not in the lineup. Right? Maybe you're a more skilled player. You can argue it whatever way you want, but he's the guy who did it. Yeah. And he's the guy who went head-to-head with Byfuglien for the 3 minutes of ice time he played every night. He was in his face.
And it makes you look at how smart McPhee actually is, and
Yeah.
him and Gerard Gallant together, because say that they're both working solo is not true.
No, in an organization, I mean, you have to have cohesion between your players and your coaches and your management, and your management and ownership. And everyone plays their role, and everybody has to be on the same page and feeling the same way. Because I mean, a team isn't going to go out and trade players that the head coach is telling him, hey, I need this guy in the lineup. I can't part with this guy. I need him. And vice versa. If a coach goes out there and says, hey, I coached this guy in junior, I coached him at the Worlds or something like that. This guy could slot in here very nicely, and let's go out and let's if we can pay a fair price, let's get him.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Sorry, just gonna go with this. I know we've said a lot on the Vegas Winnipeg for the last little bit. I just wanted to jump over because I know we're gonna talk about Washington, but what about Tampa Bay though? Like, where do you go if you're Tampa? You made the conference finals 3 out of the last 4 years. The 1 year they didn't. They missed the playoffs altogether, which was last year.
Yep.
And you've got Braden Point, who's going to be needing a new contract in a year's time, and same goes for Kucherov. And you just signed Stamkos to that massive deal. At what point does the window start to close?
Well,
because you have a fresh goalie in there, but I mean you got a lot of guys making a lot of dough, and it's going to be hard to move them.
Well, I think what they're going to run into problem-wise is as their defense ages, and they have young guys that are up for new contract. Are they going to sign these new defensemen or these younger defensemen, and are they going to be able to essentially defensively keep up, even though that their offense is going to be their driving force? So,
but it's funny.
I don't know what they do. I really don't.
It's funny you say offense is a driving force because Steven Stamkos in this series, I had to look this up today because I heard it last night on the broadcast, and I had a hard time, without following a stat sheet, I had a hard time believing this. Steven Stamkos had 6 points against Washington in the 7-game series. So on the outside, doesn't look too bad. Until you realize that 4 goals and 2 assists were all scored within the first 4 games of the series, and they were all on the power play. So, I mean, the offense, yes, but the offense is what did them in because they dried up. I think Washington, especially the bottom line guys, like I'm talking guys like Devontae Smith-Pelly and Jay Beagle, Brett Connolly, the guys that wore the opposition down, and those are the guys that I think over the course of 7 games who make a difference. And guys might scoff at the roster or a trade or a pickup like that. And say, oh, he's only scored this many goals, he's only done this. Well, who cares if Devontae Smith-Pelly scores a handful of goals every year?
Yeah.
You see the block he had last night? In the first period of the game wasn't even like in his dying moments or anything. He dove in front of that and took one off the back of the neck. Like,
yeah.
You know what? Props to guys like DSP out there, man.
Should have taken him. You would have got a point.
I had enough of those last night. Don't even start with me on that.
So here's a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Because I know you have a game that we want to do. We got to do predictions.
Yes.
And then really quick question. I'll rapid fire.
All right.
Okay.
And we'll keep it rapid this time, not the slow burns like we're known for.
Caps win the cup.
Yep.
Who gets Conn Smythe? Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, or Holtby?
Ovechkin. I don't think you can give it to anybody but Ovechkin.
Even though Kuznetsov has played so good?
Kuznetsov's played amazing. And Holtby, as good as Holtby has been, there's been some stretches of play he hasn't been very good. And the reality is, in games 6 and 7, he didn't have to be good. He just had to be in the net.
Yeah. I think it has, really quick, like, I think it's one of those things that, like, I do think Ovechkin will win. But it's like, Kuznetsov played, in my opinion, equally as well.
That whole line did that.
Like, they're phenomenal.
The Kuznetsov and even Tom Wilson is a great compliment. He's the guy who gets the puck off Kunitz last night and brings it over the line, drop pass back to Kuznetsov, and then it seemed like as soon as they crossed the line on the right hand side, Ovi kind of knew to try and drift towards the middle and kind of slide out to the left.
Yeah.
Because he knew that play was coming. He knew that Kuznetsov was going to get that bounce pass, like the back pass, and he was just getting himself open at the high far slot to let that rocket go. Yeah. And the rest is history.
All right, so what's this game?
All right, here's a quick one before we get into our predictions. Just to kind of go along with last week. What I find it was really I like the quick games. You had over or under. I have a game called Left Hand, Right Hand.
Okay.
And I have a list of 10 guys who played anywhere from the early to mid-90s to about all the way up until like the mid-2000s. And they would have retired around the same time as the lockout season. Okay? So I'm gonna read you off some names, okay? Jeff Friesen. Left or right?
I got to remember my NHL 94s and 95s and 96s, and right-handed.
Wrong. He's a lefty. Jeff Friesen. Another one. Joey Juneau.
Joe Juno. Righty.
Also a left.
Frig.
Sammy Salo.
Sammy Salo. Left.
Right.
Frig.
Randy McKay. Now this was I took a look earlier. That is the oldest guy on my list. Is Randy McKay,
Yeah. Trying to remember.
former New Jersey Devil and Montreal Canadian.
Let's go right.
Correct.
Yeah, I got one.
You got one. 1 for 4. Tommy Fitzgerald, first ever captain of the Nashville Predators, amongst other stops he had over his journeyman career.
Was he a forward?
He was a forward.
He was a forward. Okay, so I am thinking of the right person. Left.
Tommy Fitzgerald is a right-handed shooter. Valerie Bure, not Pavel,
Not
younger brother Valeri. Sorry.
I mean, right. Go lefty.
Valerie Bure is a right-handed shooter.
Wow.
Man, I thought you were gonna be much better at this than I
thought
did.
it would be much
I
better.
got 4 left for you. Stéphane Matteau. Now I use this one because think about, you remember the goal Matteau,
Yeah.
you know, think about where his wraparound would have come off. It's just in your head if you watch highlights or watch Rock'em Sock'em.
Left.
Correct. Craig Conroy.
Oh. Left.
Craig Conroy is a right-handed shooter.
Oh, I always used to put him on left wing. That's why I thought that.
And a lot of guys on the left wing, like Ovechkin is a left wing player. He's who's won first All-Star as a left and right winger in the same year because the Professional Hockey Players Association are ridiculous. Yannick Perreault, the
Yannick
face-off guru.
Left.
Yannick Perreault is a left-handed shooter. And my last one, defenseman Eric Brewer.
Eric Brewer, he was if I remember correctly, usually played right defense but shot left.
Correct. So you wound up, nothing on Friesen, nothing on Juneau, nothing on Salo. You got McKay, you got Stéphane Matteau, you got Perreault, and you got Brewer. So 4 out of 10.
Do I get 2 points for Brewer because I told what side he played? But
I'll give you,
differently?
if you did that for me last week, because I gave you a whole list of names where guys played. I'll grant you the points. You break even tonight.
50%.
Woo! You don't get 50% on a test. That's considered a pass, right?
It is.
So,
Well, and if
You
you're
know
in
what,
college,
Chris?
it's
You
different.
passed tonight, my friend. You
Friggin'
passed.
My life is friggin'
You're on the right track,
complete.
buddy. You're on the right track. See, these are things that, like, I think that, like, for me, I just think of myself. You could name me any player who plays a regular shift in the NHL over the last, 10 years, and I'll tell you what hand they shoot.
Daryl Powell.
Daryl Powell's a left-handed shooter. Because that's an awesome name.
Long story short, me and my cousin and a buddy of mine went on a real big tear with liking Daryl Powell, and I actually met him in Pro Hockey Life.
Really?
Yeah, he was at Pro Hockey Life right before a game when he was playing for Minnesota, and I had went there, and he was out just walking
Was
around.
that the Minnesota game where their equipment got burned on the bus?
I have no clue, but I remember he scored the game-winning goal.
Look it up. I can't remember who played that night, but there was a game where Minnesota was in Ottawa. It might have been before Daryl Powell played with the Wild. But there was a night that Minnesota, they were running around all the sporting goods stores on Saturday in Ottawa to buy equipment for NHL players so they could play that night because their gear got burned on the bus or some shit like that. I can't remember exactly.
That's hilarious.
Okay, so just a couple of quick things. I know we're getting tight on time here, but I just want to note a couple of quick things about the two teams here. Both GMs, so Brian McClellan for the Caps, and obviously Knights GM George McPhee, who built the Caps,
Yep.
were co-captains together in the 1981 season at Bowling Green University.
That's a deep fact.
It's a deep fact.
Wow.
I heard a lot about it last night, but I checked it out myself too. Nate Schmidt goes from being the 7th defenseman in Washington to number 1 in Vegas. And I guess here's what's going to be the telling for Washington is that they did beat the Penguins this year, but they still have to get through Marc-Andre Fleury to get to the Stanley Cup.
Isn't that poetic justice?
That is so. I know I seem like the one asking lots because
okay.
I actually did some prep before this today, as you can tell. Did something.
Very busy.
I was productive, right?
There you go.
Between Vegas and Washington, who's advantage on offense? Who do you got?
I would say offensively. I mean, it's really hard to go against Vegas right now.
I'm saying Washington, just because they do have more of the high. I mean, I know they don't have the offensive depth per se, but they do have the overall higher end guys.
Yep.
That could very well be the difference. Advantage on defense.
Vegas.
I'd have to agree. And it's not because of anything the Caps are doing wrong. Because I like their depth guys like Christian Juice and Michael Kempney. For two guys in the bottom pairing, I found they've been playing very well. But as a team, the defense core on the Vegas Golden Knights is
I think they play a
do.
very defensive game, if that makes sense.
In goal, I think we're both gonna have the same feeling in goal. Who's got the advantage?
This is Fleury's.
This is
Fleury's domain.
Yeah, I shouldn't even bother to ask the question.
Like I said, I mean, they live or die with him right now.
Who's got the advantage behind the bench between Barry Trotz in Washington and Gerard Gallant for Vegas?
I think Barry Trotz probably has the advantage, being that he's got a group of guys that I guess he can't say have been there before, but they're not all guys who have never been there before. They're not all cast-offs and sendaways, right?
Yeah, that's true. They have guys who've experienced the playoff frustrations and guys who've come over from other teams, like Brooks Orpik, Stanley Cup winner from the Penguins, and he's been playing in Washington for the last several years. And I think a guy like him is good to have. But if I'm saying advantage behind the benches, I love Barry Trotz. He's a great coach. But Gerard Gallant, again, going back to team discipline and focus, Gerard Gallant, I'll say him because of how fast that Vegas. I mean, they're never down.
If there's anybody that can fix it, it's going to be him.
The cool thing as a genuine hockey fan is you get to see either one of these two great coaches going to get to win their first Stanley Cup.
Yep.
Here's another one for you. Home ice advantage was not very kind to either team. Neither of these teams have actually closed out a series at home. So who's got the home ice advantage in this series?
I think right now, home ice advantage is wherever Vegas is.
Vegas is a state of mind.
They're gonna walk. And I mean, if you look at their building when they're there, it's electric.
They love this
insane.
Shit, man. And maybe it's because it's a new hockey team and it's Vegas, but man, they go all out. I have to say the same thing, but I mean the Caps at home. I mean they've been the Road Warriors this playoffs, but never count out a home Caps team like that. The ones that stayed alive in Game 6. Quickly, just because I know we're running out. I guess this one here is actually my advantage. The more physical team between Washington and Vegas. Call it winning in the alley.
I would say probably Washington.
I'd wholeheartedly say Washington.
Ovechkin is a friggin' barrel. Well, I don't even know what a reference that is.
He was a beast in Game 6, and then he was a beast in Game 7 for a completely different reason, and that's just to show what they can do for sure. Now here goes to their predictions. We're in the final minute of play. Who wins it? What do you got?
I'm gonna go Vegas. Vegas in 6.
You know what? I'm gonna do it the other way around here. I'm gonna be going Capitals in 6. They're winning the cup at home this year. I am not picking the expansion team to win the Stanley Cup. And given my track record, that means Vegas is going to win now. Anybody out there, you know what? If I pick the Caps, my brother Kyle, I love you, bud, but I'm sorry. Here's the kiss of death. Caps in 6.
Fair enough. That's been episode 8. We'll catch you guys next week. Have a good night.
Woo!